So an example of this, right, is we've got this snippet from our last assignment, which is the ATM assignment. Some of you are still kind of trying to figure it out. But if I take this code and let's say this is just the deposit portion of that code. So if I want to check balances, let's say I've got this code here. And this is a stripped down version of that ATM code. So I've got my balance up here for the savings account, for the checking account in a variable. They're floats. I've got my main loop that will loop until I break out of it. And then I've got my main menu, check, balance, deposit, or withdrawal. You can see I've set up kind of the structure here, but I haven't filled in the actual code that does the work for us. So if str main equals 1, we show the balances. Elif, the main menu equals 2. That's the deposit one. I should put a note to myself there. Deposit. And then inside that one, it's going to ask me which account do you want, savings or checking. And then I have an invalid choice there. And then the same thing with a withdrawal. Now I can code all of this so that it does all of the work for me, where I can say print savings, and I will do this as quickly as possible so that we don't waste too much time. 15, and then we've got plus the F string where we have FL savings, and we're going to right justify that. So now I've got this code, right? Savings, checking. So this will show my balances when I press 1. But I'm also going to want to reuse this code, right? I want to reuse this code here and here, and I want to use it here, and I want to use it here. I want to use it in all those places because after I make a deposit or withdrawal, I want to show the balances again. So, and I'm actually going to say something like, here are your current balances. Okay. So if I want to reuse that code, I can copy and paste all of those lines. But the problem with that is if I'm going to have this code appearing 5 times in my program in separate spaces, if I change one of those variable names, I'm going to have to update that code in 5 different places. If I want to, instead of having spaces in between the word savings and the amount, I'm going to have to update that code in 5 different places. But there's a simpler way. And the simpler way is by creating a custom function for showing the balances. And so the way that looks is I'm going to use the keyword def for define. And then I'm going to put parentheses after the word show balances. This is the name of my function, show balances. Parentheses. This function has no parameters. In other words, it doesn't take any arguments. Like the print statement requires an argument of the thing you're going to print out. This doesn't. This is strictly a do something, no parameter function. It's very simple. So when I call this, this is going to just do these lines of code. And the way that works is if I take those lines of code out of here and put them in there, then every time I call this, it's going to do this for me. Let me demo this code for you. The easiest way to do that is to comment all of that out. So now my code is literally just those 7 lines. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call that function. So when I want to create the function, show balances, this is what it looks like. def, the name of the function, parentheses. Later we're going to put stuff in those parentheses, but not for this one. A colon, and then indented code that says this is the code that when you call that function, you're going to do this code. And then when I want to execute that code, I'm just calling it like that. So when I run this code right here, I'm going to get that. So now if I want to add that code throughout my program, it becomes pretty easy. So I'll go back to my main program here, remove the comments, comment that out real quick. And now I can just do that so that when user says check balances, it just calls that function, show balances. And it'll do that wherever I want to put that. So now after I do a deposit, show balances, after I do a deposit there, show balances, show balances. Now I haven't actually put in the logic yet for actually doing the deposits and the withdrawals, but now I have the show balances happening really easily. And if I want to change that, so there's my check balance. So I can run that. And if I look at it and I say, oh, that's not formatted properly because it's not being worked out to a 2-digit decimal, then I can do things like add the formatting. And if I want to put a period in there for the lead character, so it kind of connects the two sides, I can make those changes. And I'm making those changes in just one place. But now, everywhere this shows up all throughout my code, it's automatically updated. So now I can take care of that much easier. Now let's run the code again. So if I go deposit, which account, obviously it's not going to do any deposits, but you can see wherever I have that code, wherever I call that function, it's just going to work. It's going to be updated. And now I know anywhere in my code, if I have an error with the showing the balances, I know right where to go. It's all in this place. So this is a really powerful concept and a really big time saver for us in coding. Okay, so we can go from this amount of code to basically this amount of code where we might want to do a deposit. We can say do deposit, give it a deposit amount and an account, and it'll just take care of that work for us. So we're taking our main part of our program and we're simplifying that, and we're taking each piece of that program where it does something, especially if it does something repetitive, but even if it's something complex and long that we just want to take that out and put it somewhere else, we can now do that by putting it into a function.